So today was finally the day. Inside Xbox just finished premiering, and we have finally seen our first official look at Xbox Series X gameplay. This was a hotly anticipated event. Microsoft was very big on promoting this and letting everyone know, hey, you're finally going to see the goods, man. We're going to show you some games with gameplay running on our next generation console. This is the biggest look and deep dive into either of the two next gen machines that we've seen so far. We were all very excited. I was super pumped. I said on Twitter last night, I was starting to feel like it was almost like a pre-E3 hype kind of evening. You know, I was like, oh my God, I feel like E3 stuff is happening tomorrow, even though that's not really what this is. And so now here we are, and we've seen a bunch of stuff. Microsoft let us know this was going to focus pretty much exclusively on third-party content, third-party games and developers. For the most part, it was going to be new games, which of course was a big deal, with the exception of obviously Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I think one or two other ones might have been stuff that we maybe knew about, or some other people might have heard of. Nothing that I'd heard of, but other people have mentioned that it's games that we knew about. That being said, it was mostly new games. It was third-party stuff, but now that we've seen it, I gotta tell you, overall, I'm feeling pretty good about it. So my plan here for this video isn't really to go over every single game that they showed in gruesome detail and discuss what I liked or didn't like about it or any of that stuff. I mean, that is fun to do, but that's not what I'm doing here. I kind of want to review more the show and what Microsoft chose to do and how they did it. So I kind of feel like I want to look at it at three different parts. I want to look at it as just a show and a presentation itself. I want to look at it as far as maybe the quality of the games that they decided to show today. And then also, most importantly, the next-gen feel and look to what they showed. How much of a next-gen showcase did this really feel like? And I think that's going to be a really interesting one. Now, if we start just as a show and a presentation itself, I have to say that I kind of loved it. I think this is the best way to do a presentation like this. Obviously, we're talking about and we're thinking about E3. It's summertime. We're coming up to that moment in time where we normally would expect E3, and we all get excited for it. So we also get excited for press conferences, right? Seeing people standing on a stage talking about their games and their consoles and all that stuff. Some people find that stuff boring, and it is boring sometimes, but overall, we tend to like that stuff. However, this, of course, is happening in a different way, where they're kind of forced to take the Nintendo Direct approach, right? By just putting everything together in a digital package with a bunch of footage. And I know that Inside Xbox has already existed. Like, I get that, you know, it's not like Inside Xbox is new, but the way they decided to showcase Series X gameplay was in a very specific, like, 30-minute package of just game footage and trailers kind of one after another, which feels a little bit more Nintendo Directy, right? Which is not normally Microsoft's MO, in lieu of no E3. And so as a show and as a presentation and as a format, I thought it was absolutely killer. I mean, just as a business move alone, I see it as really, really smart for them to do it this way and be like, hey, here's no fluff. Here's just a bunch of games. That's what you guys came here for. I mentioned recently how I was a little bit worried, even though I was excited for this, I was a little bit worried that we were going to see something where they're touting this as an Xbox Series X gameplay reveal event, and they were going to end up showing us almost nothing. You know, that happens way too often in the game industry from all the different companies. Everyone has been guilty of that in the past. And I was like, maybe they're going to show us, like, you know, like a minute of Assassin's Creed gameplay, like a demo section. And then they'll show, like, you know, 30 seconds of, like, a really cryptic tease of something that's, quote, in-engine. Kind of like they did with Hellblade 2, for example. And they were going to call that good. And it would have just felt, like, super not satisfying and not great. I was worried that it was going to be that, I'll be honest. But I was wrong, man. Any of us who were worried were wrong. Because they really just came out and they just said, hey, we're talking about Xbox Series X is going to be great. We love our partners, and now here's a bunch of games. And, you know, with a couple of breaks to talk to somebody from Microsoft here and there, and Patrick Mahomes, for the most part, it was just like, here's whatever, like 12, 13, 14 game trailers. Like, that's pretty much what they did. And yes, it's featuring gameplay assets and gameplay moments. And I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. No fat, all games. Now, if we move on to talking about the games and what they showed, that falls in an interesting camp for me. Because, I mean, like I said, they showed whatever 14 or 15 games. I have them listed. I should count them. I haven't counted. I don't know, 10, 15 games. And for the most part, I mean, they're great looking games. As far as just what the games were, Most of them seemed really appealing to me. The first one, Bright Memory Infinite, looked amazing, right? That was a shooter that looked like a kind of. I thought it was maybe going to be Titanfall, actually, the way it was like such a first-person shooter that was like sci-fi tech, but you were also very like acrobatic and athletic and doing all these crazy, shooting with a hook shot, pulling, shooting, cutting with an axe and a sword and stuff. And I was like, this is crazy, but it looked very cool and it was beautiful. So that kind of thing was really neat. It's tricky because they showed a lot of games that really also felt like more like trailers than they did gameplay reveals. I think that's where I may be 50-50 on the games that they showed, because it's not that they all look like bad games. Most of them looked good. Most of them seemed to appeal to me. There were a couple that weren't all that exciting. But I do think that, when they said that this was gameplay reveals for all these games, I don't 100% think that that's what they did, to be fair. They really felt more like cinematic trailers that they showed. They just showed a bunch of 1 and 2 minute cinematic trailers for video games that we had never seen before that might have been gameplay moments, but they weren't actually showing somebody playing a game. They weren't showcasing what the visual capability of the console was going to be. We didn't see any heads-up displays. We didn't see any control inputs. I mean, that kind of stuff, when you feel like you're seeing next-generation gameplay, they didn't do that. I mean, the Madden thing alone was like, yeah, it's like you see Patrick Mahomes, you see a flashback of classic Madden games, which is neat, and then you see the footage of the current one, and it's like, well, just looks like Madden. It didn't look like amazing or next gen or different or anything special, and it was just cut together with like cinematic camera angle shots. Like it didn't look like gameplay. So whereas I get that they were probably showing gameplay moments just with a different kind of spin to them, it doesn't unfortunately feel like they were really showcasing gameplay on this console. And I think that was a weird choice. I'm definitely disappointed by that. Even Assassin's Creed, you guys. I mean, and again, I'm not even an Assassin's Creed fan, really, although I'm still curious about Valhalla. But they didn't really showcase somebody playing Assassin's Creed. It was like just a couple of shots cinematically of what is probably otherwise gameplay. And so, they showed good games. There's a couple that interest me. That Extinction game looks pretty cool. The Ascent looks pretty cool. The Medium looks pretty cool to me. I love that the Silent Hill composer is involved with that. I thought the music sounded familiar as I watched that trailer. I just was like, this feels like something. And then they confirmed that they're working with the Silent Hill composer. So that's cool to me. Yeah, and so there's definitely good stuff. The Chorus game looked pretty interesting as well, like a space kind of shooter or something, spaceship shooter. Quality looking games for the most part. It was exciting to see them one after another given to us at a real quick clip. But it was more trailers than it was gameplay reveals, so that part is kind of unfortunate to me. Now, if we talk about the last aspect here, which is how does this come off as a next-gen showcase, that's where things also get a little bit trickier. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I feel like most of what we saw today, and I'd be curious if a lot of you guys out there agree with me, or if you disagree with me. I want to hear what you think, if this rings true to you or not. But I feel like what we mostly saw today wasn't very next-gen, And I'm not a graphics whore. This isn't about like, oh, graphics, they make games better. Like, I need great graphics, blah, blah, blah. It's not so much about that. But it is about the fact that this is a showcase for next-gen tech. And every time we move from one generation to another, one of the humongous focuses is how much better will games look. And it's not that games need to look good to be good, but good graphics, and especially next-gen graphics, like new visuals we've never ever seen before, that is always exciting, and that does have value. You can admit that great next-gen graphics have value without being a graphics whore that thinks that it's the only thing that matters, right? And that's the camp that I fall into. And so, yeah, that's the reason this is showcasing next-gen gameplay. That's the reason Microsoft did this, is they're like, this is what next-gen games will look and play like, right? So we wanted to see that. And I just think most games really didn't look that way. And I thought it was interesting because we know the Series X will feature what Microsoft is calling smart delivery, which is awesome. I think the whole concept of smart delivery is fantastic. It is brilliant. It is probably going to end up being one of the strongest feathers in Microsoft's cap this whole generation. I think that if they really, no pun intended, deliver with the concept of smart delivery, I think it's going to be one of the best things Xbox has going for it, and it could really give them a leg up over the competition if it's handled right and if it's kind of doing what we think it's going to do. And through that, so many trailers. I mean, how many of these trailers today started off with the little smart delivery icon in the corner? And what's unfortunate about that is that's kind of the way that you know that what you're seeing is a current gen game. You're going to play on the current consoles, but could also be played on the Series X and maybe look a little bit better. But you're basically seeing a current gen game. And it's not that current gen games are bad. Again, I mean, they're great, but that's not what we really came here for, right? So you're seeing this vampire game and I don't know, Madden and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, you're seeing them, and Assassin's Creed, the smart delivery comes up, and you're like, oh, well, this is just an Xbox One game, but it's going to also be playable on the Series X. And so you realize that when you look at them, like even that vampire game, for example, like nothing about that game looks next gen. I don't personally like the visual style of that game. I'll be honest with you guys. I don't like the character models. From an artistic design, I'm not saying graphics, just from like an artistic design choice, I don't like the visuals. But then on top of that, you look at that game and it's like, it looks like it almost looks like BioShock. Like, does it look like an Xbox 360 game? I mean, it kind of looks like the Dishonored games, and while those are good games, I also don't love the visual style. And so the point is, you know, you see the smart delivery, you know you're looking at current gen stuff, and most of the games we saw had that. Honestly, for me personally, with the only games that actually looked next gen to me, like they were doing something new, was obviously the Bright Memory Infinite at the beginning, and then also the second Extinction game. And coincidentally, both of those were first-person shooter games, so it's like, is next gen showing us that only first-person games can look next gen and everything else won't? I don't really think that's what it's saying, but I just noticed that as a weird kind of coincidence. But that's also just my own personal opinion. Maybe you feel like something else looked next gen that I didn't. And if so, that's fine. I mean, it's all about the games anyway and the gameplay, so any of these games could be amazing, don't get me wrong. There's also that game Scarlet Nexus, which was probably my favorite game from the show, from Bandai Namco. That looks amazing, like a cross between Code Vein and Astral Chain a little bit, you know, that kind of games. It looks really cool. But that game doesn't look next gen. There's nothing about that game that looks next gen. It just looks like a good game for what it is, but it doesn't look like something we've never seen before. And when I look at all these games shown, you know, with the exception of the two first-person shooters, especially the opening game, Bright Memory Infinite, nothing really looked or felt next gen. And so, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Tough to say. I will say I think it's a disappointing thing. I think it's really just more about disappointment. I was hoping to see stuff that was just going to floor me and, oh my god, this is what next gen is going to be. And instead, we saw mostly a bunch of Xbox One games that we know will be slightly better if you play it on the Series X. So at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, I still thought that this was a great show. This was a smart move from Microsoft. As I've been saying for months now, including just this past week, they have been leading and dominating the next-gen conversation from the jump. Sony is constantly nowhere to be seen. We don't know what they're doing. They seem, at least right now, they appear to be less prepared than Microsoft for the next generation and to launch at the end of this year, especially in light of this health crisis. And Microsoft continues to just be like, hey, here's our controller, here's our console, here's all our specs, here's some third-party games. Soon we're going to show you first-party stuff. You're going to see Halo. Everyone's going to be excited. Like, I truly feel like the Xbox Series X will end up dominating this holiday during the launch period. I really, really do. Unless Sony has some amazing surprises up its sleeve, which is very possible. And I love Sony as much as Microsoft, you guys, so I'm open to that. I'm ready. I'm not picking sides or being a fanboy here. I'm just talking about what's happening and what I'm seeing from the two companies. And Sony is consistently quiet, and Microsoft has been consistently giving us the goods. And so, did everything look next gen today here? No. Was it the best showcase of gameplay? No. But did we see great games and stuff that we know we'll be playing on the Xbox Series X? Yes, we did. And we saw it in an entertaining package that was 30 minutes of just game. So I gotta give it to Microsoft, man. They continue to do very, very well with this next-gen stuff. So I'm excited, and I'm happy with what I saw today. It feels like a little bit of a pre-E3 kind of thing, you know? It's exciting to have this stuff happening right now. So these are my thoughts and opinions. What are your thoughts and opinions? What did you think about the show and the games and the next-gen feel? Whatever you think about this stuff, please talk about it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob, a Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.